In this video, I'm covering the exclusive buyer's agency agreement, and I'm going to dig into the key terms that you may want to consider negotiating based on your situation. And I'm starting right now. What's going on, everyone? My name's Doug and welcome back to another video. And if you're new to this channel and you want to learn how to buy a house, you want to learn how to generate passive income, or really anything else related to real estate, start now by subscribing or clicking the notification bell so you don't miss anything going forward. Okay guys, so before you start house hunting and you've decided that you're going to hire an agent, your agent's going to ask you to sign an agency agreement. The most common form of this agreement is called an exclusive right to represent. So I find it suiting that I'll start with that agreement, walk you through each paragraph in this agreement, and then I'll loop back and show you a couple modifications you may want to consider making based on your situation. So let's get started. Okay everyone, so let's just jump right into the exclusive buyer agency agreement. And you should be able to see it here on my screen. I'm moving it back and forth. And I want to start with paragraph 1. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to use blue to highlight points that I want to make or provisions that I really want to pick on. And then I'm going to use red as ones as I talk about them to remind me to come back and make a couple connections to suggested changes you might want to think about or terms you may want to negotiate based on your given circumstances. Okay, so let's highlight blue. Rights to represent. Okay, the first thing that you're going to see is that you're basically going to say, in consideration of the services of your agent. Okay, maybe I'll use a pen for this. And your agent, okay, buying through their broker. You're always signing with the person's broker. They're always called a selling agent or a selling firm who represents you. Okay, for the purposes of exclusively, look at this, exclusively representing, okay, the buyer. Okay, so you have your names there. But the big thing to look at is this exclusivity of representing. It means that they are the sole agent or brokerage firm that is representing you versus a non-exclusive that you can see out in the market. And in that one, in that type of agreement, you can go out and get other brokers to help you find the same particular type of property you're going for. And they basically compete. It gets pretty sloppy. There's reasons maybe you want to do it. I've never thought of one why I would do it in today's world, but that's the difference between exclusive, okay? That's the big thing to get out of it. Some of the things I want to mention that are hidden in this one may not be in every single agreement because this one is standard for Arkansas, but the one I want to come back to is that in the event that the selling firm locates and shows the buyer or buyer discovers on his own a for sale by owner or property not listed with a real estate licensee, meaning it's just not listed with an agent, so there's no commission agreed to by the seller to pay, the buyer shall pay the fee set forth herein should the buyer at any time enter into a contract to purchase such for sale by owner or property not listed with a real estate licensee. Literally what this says is that, okay, we understand broadly in the standard in the industry that your buyer's agent is generally paid out of a portion of the commission that the seller pays. But if you go out, or even if your buyer's agent finds a for sale by owner property or another property not listed with an agent whereby there's a guaranteed commission and there's no commission that's agreed to be paid by that particular seller who is not represented by a real estate agent, they want you. Your real estate agent is telling you that they want to represent you, and for doing that, they want you to pay that fee. That can get tricky, so keep that in mind. Property descriptions on number 2. Number 2 is interesting, okay? Number 2 really is to describe what I generally see people do is the same type of description that you'll see on Zillow. So it's like, okay, we're looking for a 2-bed, we're looking for a 2-bath, we're looking for 3,000 square feet, we're looking for this neighborhood, right? Neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. It really just says, okay, this is what you're looking for. The thing I want you to understand here is what isn't the agent helping with. Let me explain. if you are simultaneously looking for a house for you and your family to live in, and you're also looking for, say, commercial property for you to go set up a business, or let's say that you're looking for a similar property that you're about to move into, but as an investment property, you want to be very clear that the agent's only helping you with the home because you might have another agent helping you with buying that rental. Usually rare cases that happens, but this is a section where you can put in the property what they're specifically looking for. So you can literally say one residential, and special provisions later, you can also say, hey, like they're not helping me with that. But just be careful. But this is really a section of what are you looking for? What would it, if I was helping you search for the property, what are all the criteria that you could give me in terms of your wish list that I can go put into my search engine and make sure that I'm honing in on what you expect me to find versus me just trying to bring you things that are outside your price range and other things. So those are other things that you'd put in here, such as price, etc. Okay? Now, when we look at duration of agency, this is just how long is it? Generally, what you'll see is 60 to 90 days. Sometimes you can see up to 6 months, okay? But if we were to start, say, on the 1st of January of 2021, it may end on 30 days past September, April, June, and November, maybe the 31st of March, which would give you about 90 days. And then you would have the option to mutually agree to extend it. That's all this says. It says that I'm an exclusive agent who is now helping you find a particular property, and this is how long I'm going to help you, and then we can think about going forward after that expiration if necessary. Okay, provision 4 is selling firms representation and services. Okay, this basically says that they're going to give their best effort to go out on multi-listing services, okay, and gain acceptance of any offer for purchase property. So they're going to help you find, they're going to help you negotiate and try to gain acceptance of your offer and assist in the completion of the transaction. Pretty cut and dry. What I find particularly interesting, okay, that I want to also address too, is that it says buyer agrees selling firm shall not have any duty to review or learn of any for sale by owner or properties not listed with real estate licensee that may suit the desires or needs of the buyer. Okay? Think about that. What it's saying is that they're going to help you find your desired house, but there might be some houses out there that meet your needs and desires, but because they're not listed by their friends or their colleagues who are licensed by the state and listing this on a multi-listing service, they're not obligated to go find those properties for you. So they're only going to help you find potentially anywhere between 60 and 90% of what's actually out there available that fits your needs. I always found that interesting, so I want to address it later. Tie it back to some of the other provisions. Number 5, cost of services or products obtained from outside sources. This one's simple. It literally says that I, as an agent, am not going to go order a home inspector or other services that you as a buyer would be obligated to pay without me first running it by you and you agreeing to it. So there are circumstances where you've accepted a house contract, you're trying to get to closing, but there's a contingency that you get a home inspection. This is a great example, and I might help you procure that home inspector. This just prevents me from saying, hey, home inspector, I know you, we trust you, and yeah, your fee's $500, but I'm not gonna worry about asking the buyer, let's just go ahead and do that. And then the buyer comes back and says, hey, I didn't want to particularly pay that much, I didn't want to use this particular agent, and or I just don't have the available funds in the given time that they have, and I was working on that. So there's a lot that can happen in the reason for that paragraph, but it just says that, hey, you're protected, we're not just gonna go out and spend your money without you, without first telling you. Selling firm's fee is paragraph 6. Essentially, if you look at the bold, there's 2 things to know. One is the selling firm is authorized to accept partial payment or full payment from the seller's agent. Remember, if you hear a lot of chatter out there that the seller pays the commission of the buyer and the seller agent, in most cases that's true because of the 6% that is then split into 3% and 3% for both sides. And this is what that bold is saying. So it's really emphasizing that, hey, like, the firm who's representing you does have authorization to accept those payments and that you understand that that money is coming from someone else and not you. There's also a caveat that says if a buyer is getting a VA loan, there's rules around who can actually pay for the agency fee. A buyer can't pay a buyer agent's fee, or a buyer's agent can't accept a buyer's fee who's getting a VA loan. Find that very suiting for veterans, and it's very nice. So that's always just a disclaimer that's in these. The big thing to see in this is these two provisions here. A or B, what I usually see is A clicked and it will say that 3% of the gross amount of any accepted real estate contract entered into by the buyer plus $0 for professional services rendered. What this is a protective clause for the buyer's agent in the event, okay, and I'll use green here, that the selling firm can't get a partial payment or a complete payment from a seller or the listing firm. So if let's say that maybe the seller is only offering 3% to the seller's agent, it's like a weird scenario where the seller's agent has also like agreed that they're not gonna like go for the 6% and help split it with the buyer's agent, or you're going out and you find a for sale by owner as described earlier, or your friend and family decide that they're going to sell you a house and there's no commissions involved. Well, what this provision here is saying is that great, like although the buying agent wants to go after the seller's agent for that, if there isn't that opportunity, you as a buyer are on the hook for that 3%. Okay, keep that in mind. I want to highlight this in red here. Okay, first let me clean it up a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to come back to this at the end with these other paragraphs that I've highlighted. Okay, agency representation. This says, this is all around dual agency, so I'll write it here. Dual agency. Dual agency is quite simply, you have a broker that you just signed with. They might have two different agents. One of the agents might have a listing that you like, meaning that one of the agents in the brokerage is representing a seller who has a house on the market that you as a buyer want to buy, and you're represented by another agent by that broker. That forms a dual agency because you're under the same brokerage. And so they just want, this is all about you just having disclosure that there may be potential conflicts of interest because information is floating around the office and other things, but there's a duty by the agents and the brokers to keep things confidential between and separate from each of the agents. Sometimes in different industries, it's called a Chinese wall, where you separate these individuals and they don't talk about it, and they really are representing the best interest. That usually always happens. There's usually no conflict, so most people will check A. However, just realize that you do have the option to say, no, the selling firm may not represent both. And so in that situation, if you find a house online that you like that is also listed by the broker who's representing you through one of the agents, you basically need to contact them yourselves or find another agent who is outside of this brokerage to help represent you. And then that gets a little hairy too, but generally there's nothing wrong with just going with this one. Okay. So number 8, expired agency condition, is all around how a buyer agrees to pay the fee that they've agreed to in paragraph 6, right? So it says during the agency period, obviously, right? If you're being represented by them and you go out and you buy this during the agency period, yeah, you should owe them the fee in the circumstance where you owe them the fee and they haven't gotten it from like the other sources like the seller's agent. B says that this is during a period of what I'll typically see is 30 to 60 days post term period, meaning it's expired, but for 30 to 60 days thereafter, when information was given or obtained through the selling firm, meaning your buyer's agent, during this agency period, and it resulted or contributed to you purchasing a property. Okay, and it doesn't mean that it has to be the procuring cause, which means you're the absolute reason for that person buying the property. But if there was some cause of information or other things that made you lead to that property and you make it, then they're owed that commission even though the agency has expired. And there's scenarios where this happens all the time where an agent might give information to a buyer and it's 2 days before the expiration of the agreement. For whatever reason, 2 days later, they don't agree to extend the agreement, but the buyer then goes out and starts to buy that house. And the same, C is very similar, but it's all around procuring. It doesn't matter what the time frame is, okay? It doesn't have to happen in C. There's no time frame. It just says anytime after expiration or termination of the agreement, if there is a procuring cause, meaning they are the sole reason that you went out and purchased that as an agent. Your agent's the sole reason that you went out and bought that property. Even if this is like 6, 12 months later, you owe them the commission. And they're owed a commission by someone, and it's usually you're the one on the hook for it. But there is an exception where if you go out and you want to employ another real estate firm as an exclusive agent and purchase that property that we're talking about in all these situations, then you shall only be responsible for paying one. Because technically it's expired, you've hired another exclusive, and this is just industry. In the industry, it's like, okay, cool, like there's another agent, like what are we gonna do? We're gonna go try to claw 3% from someone who's already paying another agent 3% potentially. It gets hairy, so just know that there are things and that you should also as a buyer be pretty understanding that if an agent's helping you and then the agreement happens to expire and you're not on really bad terms with the person, that I think A, B, and C, all three of these are absolutely fair game for an agent to come back and try to get money, because there's no reason for you not to work with someone on that. Provision 9, cancellation. I think this is fair. I'm not going to get into it. I think it could be a little less complicated, meaning that like the buyer doesn't need to provide notice sent by U.S. certified mail and like give 7 days for this thing to elapse. Like in today's society and like technology today, like why can't this just be a text? So one thing you can do is like maybe just change this language and say I can just text you and it's fine. But the big one that you really need to look out for is this liquidated sums. Liquidated means that we're not going to sit here and count up like if you cancel on me and that I've spent a bunch of money on as a buyer's agent on gas and other things. What this clause is trying to do is say, hey, you decided to leave. I've invested time and money, potentially on marketing, that gas that I was mentioning. And maybe in return for you canceling early, maybe I charge you $500 or $1,000. You know, it can get pretty expensive. Never allow this to be like, I would just always say 0, like done. Just be 0 and get it done. That's all I'm going to say about this. Be able to quickly get out. So 2 things in cancellation, you should be able to do it as a one side. You should be able to cancel whenever you want, quickly, not have to go through a bunch of mail and a process, and you should never have to pay liquidated damages or any fees for terminating. That's all I'm going to say about that. Just do it. Most agents, even good ones, aren't going to argue that. You don't have to have this in here. Earnest money, okay. Fair housing, buyer warrants, representation, authorizations, closing protections. These are pretty standard. You can read through them. There's nothing that you're going to change, so I'm not going to cover these. The same thing with assignment by buyer, special conditions. You know, you can use this one as a way to maybe create the right agreement for you, whereby you say, I will pay you 3% or other things that you might want to agree to, but maybe there's special conditions where you want exceptions to that. So you can do it here, but I'll explain how I would give you a couple suggestions here in a minute. Safety essentially says that like seller utilizes their best practices to make sure that you're safe. Limitations of responsibility. This one's funny. Like as an agent, like I laugh at this one. I get it. It basically says that we tell you that we don't have anything to do with assessing the condition of a house. We're supposed to be experts in real estate, but there are professional licensed home inspectors, and that we highly suggest that you get one. And we're not warranting that the house is in great condition, and by having us as a representative that you're going to be better off, or you have a better guarantee that you're more protected under that. And so it's essentially saying we're not liable and we're not responsible for you buying a crappy house. Like it's on you and home inspectors, and we're here basically just to help barter and like find houses for you. So just be aware, like, agents don't have the expertise per se. We might have the expertise, but we don't have the legal obligation, nor do we have the duty to assess the condition of your house. We can help give our opinion on it, but the person that you rely on is a home inspector, yourself, and other professionals, not us. And so don't think that like that's a value add that we're really giving you. That's my point on that one. Severability, just these are more legal terms that you'll find in most agreements, and so I'm not going to waste your time getting into it. If you're interested, comment below and I can explain some legal jargon to you, but I don't think it's pertinent for you needing to know any of this. So what I really want to do to finish up this video is go back to these red ones and give you a little bit of a rant, give you a little bit of my 2 cents on this. Okay, I think you should use an exclusive agent, okay? I think that your exclusive agent is a salesperson who understands real estate and understands that not every sale is going to go through, and not every client that we work with should lead to a commission or a fee, okay? What you need to understand is not feel bad that you perhaps go with someone else in terms of a for sale by owner, or maybe your friends and family come up and present you an opportunity to buy a house after you've signed in a contract with an exclusive agent, which may lead to your agent not getting money if you have the right terms in this. I hope that makes sense. So really what I want you to do is understand that we are salespeople. We are here to help your best interest, but you should understand that I and others appreciate that we may not make money. So you shouldn't have to feel obligated to ever make up for someone else's mistake is probably a better way of putting this. Let me explain. I want to start by looking at this commission section, right? Let me erase some of this so it's clearer to you. When you look at the seller's fee, there is an expectation that they can get money from the seller, right? So one of the scenarios that I always come up with is a seller's agent agrees with a seller to only accept a 5% commission, not a 6% commission. And then the buyer's agent is used to getting half of a 6% commission, which is 3%, right? So if the seller's agent has only agreed to 5%, and the seller's agent only wants to give 2.5% to a buyer's agent, well, there's 2 things. One, you shouldn't have to pay that 0.5%. So if you, in this provision here that I highlighted earlier, put 3%, okay, and your agent's only getting 2.5%, you have to pay that other 0.5%. Do not do that. You should never do that. And it's for 2 reasons. One, 2.5% is a damn good commission for a buyer's agent, regardless of who they are. And 2, if a seller has agreed, or a seller's agent has agreed with their seller to accept 5%, you shouldn't have to pay for that seller's agent for negotiating that agreement the way that they did. So there's 2 things. Let your buyer's agent fight for their 3% and make the seller's agent do the 2%. That makes sense? You shouldn't have to pay any of that. So there's no reason for you to ever put anything in these 2 provisions here, like this one and this one, right? Or this one, or this one. That's why the first thing I would say is that you should always have 0%, 0%, $0, $0. Even with an exclusive agent, what this will help you do is say that in any event, you understand that they can accept payment of a selling firm's fee from a seller and from a listing firm, but you as a buyer are never going to pay any fee regardless, okay? Now what that will also do is give you discretion to determine if you ever want to give them a fee later on, but you should never hook yourself into it. That's my first one. So I'll highlight that in red again, paragraph 6. You really want to understand the selling firm's fee, and the best way for you to make sure you're protected is just put 0 on all of it every single time, okay? Now I also want to revisit 2 of these to give you a reason as to why I think 0% is acceptable. So if you go back to them representing you, yeah, they're representing you wholly and individually. But remember this, in the event the selling firm locates or shows a buyer, or buyer discovers on his own a for sale by owner or a property that's not going to pay the buyer's agent a commission from like another agent, You as a buyer have to pay that fee? Well, I think you have to split it in two ways. There's the first one, selling firm, okay, locates. Cool. So selling firm locates. Now, or you locate. If you locate and they didn't bring you anything like that, why do you have to pay for that fee? Yeah, they might help you close and stuff, but they're telling you in paragraph 4 that you agree that they shall have no duty. They have no duty to review any of these or find them on the market. But then if you go out and you find it, okay, maybe they're helping you close a transaction, all of a sudden you're owed money. I get it, because if they're going to continue on with you and help you transact on that for sale by owner, and you can't get the for sale by owner to pay a 3% commission to your buyer's agent, then who's going to pay for your agent's time and money? So I would say, one, you can still leave all this 0 down here and make it a special condition one-on-one with this individual, not contractually, that if you do find in the rare instance a for sale by owner or another property where there's not going to be commission paid to the buyer's agent, depending on how much effort they put in and whether they're the ones who brought the property or you're the one who brought the property, dictates how much you're willing to help bridge that gap. So in most cases, for sale by owners will probably give a couple percentages. So maybe there's a gap of 1 or 2% for your buyer's agent. Your buyer's agent should be happy to accept whatever the for sale by owner or other person was willing to pay without coming after you. But there also should be a gauge on, well, how much did they really earn, especially if they didn't have a duty to show you, and then maybe they didn't show you, and you're the one who brought it to their attention and then they helped you. Like, you see what I'm saying? So those are the things that I would point out there. I want to reiterate that for cancellations, okay, in cancellations, you should always have $0 here, okay, 0. You should never, no fees anywhere. No fees there. And I might as well just go ahead and go through all of the fees. Like, you should have, again, no fees. I think that's my clear message, is just don't have any fees that you agree to pay anywhere in this, okay? And that's what I would say. Now, a couple things on exclusivity. Absolutely, I think the exclusivity makes sense. I think accepting dual agency makes sense. I think the expiration terms that are usually in this make sense. I think the cancellation by and large makes sense, except for how quick you can actually cancel and for how much you may have to pay as liquidated damages. That doesn't make sense. And then all this other stuff is there. So I hope this helps you. I know it's sloppy and there's a lot on here, but what I really wanted to do is make sure that you understand that when you sign an agreement with an agent, okay, the most common one is this exclusive buyer's agency agreement, which gives people exclusivity, and it really forces you to basically pay, it really guarantees an agent who's on the buy side a commission one way or another, usually coming from a sell side, but in the event that you find different houses that don't offer commissions, you're the one who's going to be stuck paying this, and you don't want to always necessarily be in a position where you have to pay that. So that's why I'm really focused on all these fees. Always agree to 0 fees. And I'll end by saying, when you look at firms out there that are good or not good, one of the things that I really look at that my firm does really well is that we always do exactly what I just advised you to do. We don't make anyone put any sort of fee in here. Ours always reads 0, 0, 0, 0. There's never liquidated damages. It's always 0. Like, make you feel comfortable and give you the option of when it makes sense to potentially make up any difference that is in our fee, because we as professionals understand that not every deal is going to go through, and it will be a rare occasion where a for sale by owner or someone who's not listed with a real estate agent and has agreed to a commission, it's going to be very rare where, one, the buyer is going to go into that type of transaction, and it's going to be even more rare that the for sale by owner or whoever owns the house isn't going to agree to help pay some of the commission, if not all the commission anyway. So don't agree to any of these fees is the message I'm trying to help you with. And if you want me to go through each one of these provisions a little bit more detail, let me know. But I think this video is long enough, so I'm going to cut it here. And I hope this helps, guys. Yes, I know that was a long video, but I think it's merited. I think it's warranted. I think we needed to do what we did to give you the tactical understanding of how to read and negotiate these agreements, because I think it's very important to set yourself up for success before you go out hunting for a house with your agent. Okay, I'll leave it at that. But I also want to remind you that this video is part of a series for first-time home buyers where I walk you end to end through the home buying experience. So if you want to continue your education on how to buy a house, I suggest that you click below on the links, or go ahead, I think right now, and click on these cards here, and it should take you where you need to go to really continue that education. Until the next video, guys, I hope you have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.